Burbank, California. NBC Studios, December 3, 1968. Tuesday afternoon, 2:30 p.m. The conference room sits in sterile silence, its beige walls and fluorescent lighting creating the kind of corporate atmosphere where dreams go to die. Around a polished mahogany table sit 8 men in identical dark suits, their faces carrying the calculated expressions of television executives who have reduced entertainment to spreadsheets and focus groups. These are the gatekeepers of American television, the men who decide what 200 million Americans will watch in their living rooms every evening. At the head of the table sits Bob Finkel, NBC's head of variety programming, a man whose success is measured not in artistic achievement, but in advertising revenue and Nielsen ratings. At 45, Finkel has spent 15 years turning television into a safe, predictable, profitable medium where nothing unexpected ever happens and no performer is allowed to be dangerous. Today's meeting is about Elvis Presley, and Finkel is confident that this will be one of the easiest decisions of his career. Elvis's movie career is dead. His last 3 films were critical and commercial disasters that lost money for the studios and embarrassed everyone involved. Speedway was called unwatchable by Variety. Stay Away Joe was described as career suicide by The Hollywood Reporter. Live a Little, Love a Little played to empty theaters across America. His record sales have plummeted from millions to hundreds of thousands. His last album failed to crack the top 20 for the first time in his career. Radio stations have stopped playing his music, calling it old-fashioned in an era of psychedelic rock and folk protest. The cultural landscape has shifted beneath Elvis's feet. The Beatles dominate with experimental albums like Sgt. Pepper's. Bob Dylan writes songs that challenge the establishment. Young audiences who once screamed for Elvis now scream for performers who represent rebellion against everything Elvis has become: safe, predictable, establishment-approved entertainment. At 33, Elvis Presley is widely considered a relic, a has-been, a reminder of a simpler time that America has outgrown. Music critics write about him in the past tense, as if his career is already over. Rock historians discuss his influence rather than his relevance. The man who once represented the future of American music is now seen as a nostalgic curiosity. But Elvis still has name recognition, and name recognition sells Christmas specials. Safe, family-friendly, non-controversial Christmas specials that attract older viewers and the sponsors who want to reach them. Gentleman, Finkel says, opening a blue folder that contains the future of Elvis Presley's career, let's discuss the Elvis Presley Christmas special. Our vision is simple: Elvis in a tuxedo, standing in front of a Christmas tree, singing holiday standards. White Christmas, Silent Night. Maybe Blue Christmas as a nod to his past. 1 hour of wholesome family entertainment. The other executives nod approvingly. This is exactly the kind of programming they understand: predictable, safe, designed to offend no one and challenge nothing. Elvis Presley, as a Christmas crooner, sanitized and domesticated, the rebellious spirit that once terrified parents now reduced to a comforting holiday tradition. What about his manager? Asks Tom Sarnoff, NBC's vice president of programming. What does Colonel Parker think? Finkel smiles. Colonel Parker loves the idea. He sees it as easy money. 1 hour of work for a 7-figure payday. Parker's only concern is making sure Elvis doesn't do anything unpredictable. The word hangs in the air like a warning. Unpredictable is the last thing NBC wants from Elvis Presley. Unpredictable is what made Elvis dangerous in the 1950s, what caused riots and moral panic and congressional hearings. Unpredictable is what NBC has spent billions of dollars learning to avoid. And Elvis, Sarnoff asks, what does he think? Finkel's smile falters slightly. We haven't presented the concept to him directly yet. We've been working through Parker as usual. But I can't imagine Elvis would object to singing Christmas songs. It's not like he has better options. What Bob Finkel doesn't understand, what none of the men in this conference room can comprehend, is that Elvis Presley has been waiting his entire adult life for someone to tell him no, so he can remember what it feels like to say no back. Memphis, Tennessee. Graceland. Same day, 5:45 p.m. Elvis Presley sits alone in his living room, holding a telephone that feels heavier than it should. On the other end, Colonel Tom Parker's voice crackles with the enthusiasm of a man who has just secured another lucrative deal for his most famous client. "It's perfect, Elvis," the Colonel is saying, his Dutch accent thick with satisfaction. 1 hour of television, Christmas songs, very respectable, very safe. NBC is willing to pay $2 million for this, my boy. $2 million. For singing Jingle Bells. Elvis stares out the window at the grounds of Graceland, the mansion that his success built, but that has become more prison than palace. At 33, he feels older than his father, worn down by a decade of mediocre movies and formulaic songs chosen by committees who care more about profit margins than artistic integrity. Christmas songs, Elvis repeats, his voice flat. Beautiful Christmas songs. The classics. Maybe you wear a nice tuxedo, stand next to a Christmas tree, very elegant, very classy, the kind of show that brings families together. Elvis closes his eyes. He knows what the Colonel is really saying. Behave yourself. Be safe. Be what they expect you to be. Don't remind anyone that you were once dangerous. For 10 years, Elvis has followed this formula. 10 years of movies where he plays the same character with different names, singing songs that sound like jingles for breakfast cereal. 10 years of watching his artistic soul die one compromise at a time. "Colonel," Elvis says quietly, "I need to think about this." "Think about what, my boy?" "It's $2 million for singing songs you could do in your sleep." Maybe that's the problem. The silence on the other end of the phone stretches for 10 seconds. Colonel Parker is not used to Elvis questioning his judgment, not used to hearing doubt in the voice of his most obedient client. "Elvis, this is not the time for artistic temperament. Your movie career is finished. Your records are not selling. This Christmas special is a gift from heaven. We take the money, you sing the songs, and we rebuild your career on solid ground." "Solid ground," Elvis repeats. "Or safe ground. What's the difference?" Elvis hangs up the phone without answering, because he is beginning to understand that the difference is everything. The next morning, NBC Studios, Burbank, Conference Room B, 10 a.m. Elvis Presley walks into the conference room wearing black pants, a black shirt, and an expression that makes the NBC executives immediately uncomfortable. This is not the compliant, grateful performer they expected to meet. This is someone who looks like he has something to prove. Behind Elvis walks Steve Binder, the young television producer who has been hired to direct the Christmas special. At 31, Binder represents everything that traditional television executives fear: creativity, unpredictability, and the dangerous belief that television can be art instead of just commerce. Binder has spent the last month studying Elvis, watching old performance footage, reading interviews, trying to understand what went wrong with the most naturally gifted performer of his generation. What he discovered was a man who had been systematically stripped of everything that made him special, reduced to a commodity by an industry that preferred profit to passion. Binder believes that somewhere inside the tired, frustrated movie star sits the revolutionary who changed American music forever. The question is whether that revolutionary still has the courage to come out and play. Binder has bet his career on the belief that he does. Bob Finkel stands to greet Elvis with the kind of artificial enthusiasm that network executives perfect in business school. "Elvis, it's wonderful to meet you. We're so excited about this Christmas special. It's going to be magical." Elvis doesn't smile. "Tell me about this magical Christmas special." Finkel opens his blue folder, pulling out concept sketches and song lists. "Well, we see you in an elegant setting, maybe a living room with a beautiful Christmas tree. You'll be wearing a tuxedo, very sophisticated, very dignified. The song selection will be classic Christmas standards. White Christmas, Silent Night, the Christmas song. 1 hour of family entertainment that celebrates the holiday spirit." Elvis looks at the concept sketches, himself standing stiffly beside a Christmas tree, arms at his sides, looking like a department store mannequin. He looks at the song list, every predictable holiday song ever recorded, chosen for their familiarity rather than their emotional impact. "This looks like a Lawrence Welk Christmas special," Elvis says quietly. The room goes silent. Comparing anything to Lawrence Welk is television's equivalent of a death sentence, safe, boring, irrelevant. "Well," Finkel says nervously, "we're going for a more traditional approach, something that appeals to your original audience, the people who remember you from the Ed Sullivan Show. The people who remember me from the Ed Sullivan Show remember me being dangerous. They remember me being censored from the waist down because I moved too much. You want me to stand next to a Christmas tree and sing Jingle Bells." Tom Sarnoff leans forward. "Elvis, we understand you want to be creative, but we have to consider the audience. This is prime-time television. Families will be watching. We need content that's appropriate for children." Elvis stands up slowly, and suddenly the conference room feels smaller, the air thicker. When he speaks, his voice carries the same quiet intensity that once made teenage girls scream and parents lock their doors. "Mr. Sarnoff, do you know who I am?" "Of course. You're Elvis Presley." "No, I mean, do you know who I really am? Do you know what I represent?" The executives exchange nervous glances. This is not going according to script. "I am the guy who changed American music forever. I am the guy who took black rhythm and blues and country music and mixed them together in a way that scandalized the country. I am the guy who proved that popular music could be dangerous, that it could challenge authority, that it could make people feel things they weren't supposed to feel." Elvis walks to the window that overlooks the NBC parking lot, his back to the 8 executives who control his television future. "For the last 10 years, you people, Mindustry, the Colonel, the movie studios, you've been trying to make me safe. You've put me in movies where I play a singing race car driver or a singing soldier or a singing beach bum. You've given me songs that sound like they were written by committees. You've turned the most dangerous performer in American music into a joke." He turns back to face the room, and the executives see something in his eyes that has been absent for years. Fire. "Now you want me to stand next to a Christmas tree in a tuxedo and sing Silent Night. You want me to be so safe, so harmless, so irrelevant that families can watch me while they eat dinner and not worry about their children being influenced by anything dangerous." Bob Finkel clears his throat. "Elvis, we're not trying to make you irrelevant. We're trying to rebuild your career with programming that will be successful." Elvis laughs, but there's no humor in it. "Successful? You want to know what's successful? Successful is making people feel something. Successful is taking risks. Successful is being willing to fail spectacularly rather than succeed boringly." He walks back to the conference table, places both hands on its polished surface, and looks directly at Bob Finkel. "I'll do your television special, but I won't do it your way." "What do you mean?" Finkel asks, though he's beginning to suspect he doesn't want to know the answer. I mean no tuxedo. I mean no Christmas tree. I mean no silent night. I mean you give me a stage, an audience, and the freedom to remember who I used to be before you people convinced me to be something else. The silence in the conference room is deafening. 8 network executives stare at Elvis Presley as if he's announced his intention to commit career suicide on national television. That's not what we agreed to, Tom Sarnoff says carefully. Elvis straightens up, and when he speaks, his voice is calm, final, absolute. No. No what? No, I won't do your Christmas special. No, I won't wear your tuxedo. No, I won't sing your safe little songs. No, I won't be your Christmas crooner. The word echoes in the conference room like a gunshot. After 10 years of saying yes to everything, after a decade of compliance and compromise and artistic death, Elvis Presley has remembered how to say no. Bob Finkel's face turns red. Elvis, you can't just change the entire concept. We have contracts. We have sponsors. We have commitments to the network. Then cancel it, Elvis says simply. Cancel the whole thing. I'd rather not do television at all than do television that turns me into something I'm not. Steve Binder, who has been silent during this entire confrontation, finally speaks. What if there was a third option? Everyone turns to look at the young producer. What if we did a special that wasn't a Christmas show and wasn't the old Elvis, but something new? Something that showed who Elvis Presley is in 1968. Finkel shakes his head immediately. Absolutely not. We have advertisers expecting a Christmas special. We have an audience expecting holiday programming. Then give them something better, Binder says. Give them Elvis Presley unplugged, unrehearsed, unfiltered. Give them an hour of the most famous performer in the world being human instead of being a brand. Elvis looks at Binder with something approaching hope. What does that look like? Black leather instead of a tuxedo. A small stage instead of a Christmas set. Your music instead of their playlist. An audience of real people instead of a studio audience. You being you for the first time in 10 years. The conference room erupts. Executives talking over each other, arguing about contracts and sponsors and network commitments. But through the chaos, Elvis hears only one thing clearly, the possibility of artistic redemption. Gentlemen, Elvis says, and his voice cuts through the argument like a knife through silk. I'm going to walk out of this room now. You have 24 hours to decide whether you want Elvis Presley the Christmas crooner or Elvis Presley the performer. If you choose the crooner, find someone else. If you choose the performer, call Steve and we'll make something that people will remember for the rest of their lives. Elvis heads toward the door, then stops and turns back one last time. Just remember, you came to me. You needed me. I don't need you. I never needed you. I only needed to remember that I don't need you. He walks out, leaving 8 television executives staring at an empty chair and wondering if they just witnessed the end of Elvis Presley's career or the beginning of its resurrection. 24 hours later, same conference room, 9 a.m. Bob Finkel sits alone, staring at 2 pieces of paper. One is a contract cancellation, ready to be signed, that would end the Elvis Presley Christmas special before it begins. The other is a revised agreement that gives Elvis and Steve Binder complete creative control over what will no longer be called a Christmas special. The phone rings. Bob, it's Tom Sarnoff. What's the decision on Presley? Finkel looks at both pieces of paper, thinking about safe Christmas programming and predictable holiday ratings. Then he thinks about Elvis Presley walking out of the conference room yesterday, radiating the kind of dangerous charisma that had been missing from television for years. We're going with the performer, Finkel says. Are you sure? This could be a disaster. Finkel signs the creative control agreement. Tom, Elvis Presley hasn't been dangerous in 10 years. Maybe it's time to remember why he became famous in the first place. 3 months later, on December 3rd, 1968, Elvis will air on NBC. Elvis Presley will walk onto a small stage wearing black leather, carrying only a guitar and 10 years of pent-up artistic frustration. For 1 hour, America will remember why they fell in love with Elvis Presley in the first place. The show will begin with Elvis sitting in a circle with his old friends, talking and laughing and playing music the way they used to in Memphis before fame complicated everything. Then he will stand alone on stage and perform If I Can Dream, a song about hope and healing that speaks directly to a nation torn apart by war and racial violence. The performance will be raw, honest, vulnerable, in a way that television has never seen. The ratings will be extraordinary. 42% of Americans watching television that night will tune in. Critics who had written Elvis's obituary will call it the greatest television performance ever filmed. The Washington Post will write, Elvis Presley reminded us why he became the king. The recording of If I Can Dream will become his first top 20 hit in 4 years. The International Hotel in Las Vegas will offer him a residency that becomes the most successful concert engagement in entertainment history. Elvis's career will be reborn overnight, leading to 7 years of sold-out concerts that gross more money than any performer in history. He will prove that an artist can reinvent himself, that it's never too late to remember who you really are, that sometimes the word no is the most powerful word in the English language. All because of one word: no. Sometimes the most important moments in our lives come when we remember that we have the power to refuse, that we don't have to be what other people want us to be, that saying no to the wrong things allows us to say yes to the right things. Elvis Presley said no to a Christmas special and yes to being himself again. Sometimes that's all it takes to save a career. Sometimes that's all it takes to change the world.